Welcome to my coding school. In this video, let's start by looking at cascade. So when you have two rules that have equal specificity and then you apply them on the same element, the browser decides by applying the last one to the element. For example, if I have an h1 here with a class of heading, and then I put in some text, and then I save, and then we have it here in the browser. And then when I come to the CSS and then get the heading by its class, and then the declaration block, and then I change the color to green, and then I save. You'll see now that our color becomes green. But then if I target the very same element heading and then still apply the same color property and then change it to red, you'll see now that I save, then refresh. You'll see now that the text becomes red. Why? Because whenever you have two selectors that are targeting the same element, the last one will be applied. So this is what we mean by cascade. So let us look at another thing. So let us look at specificity. So whenever you have a different element and then you apply to it a class or an ID or simply a type element, a selector, each of them will be applied at different. So let's look at some example. So here, if we have a button with a class of btn, and then with an ID of let's say with an ID of a button 1, and then I'll put in add and then save, and then we have this button here, and then I'll come to the CSS. I'll start by getting the btn class, and then what I'll do is I'll change the background color to blue like this. Then if I save, you'll see now that the button becomes blue. So now if I get the same button by this time with its ID 1, and then I'll apply in the background to yellow, you'll see now that the text becomes yellow. And then here it was blue, but because we applied an ID is more specific than the class, so it will be applied here. And then when I use here a button which is a type selector and then applying a different background here, and then this one I'll change it to gray, and then I first comment this out and then I save. You'll see now that the button is gray. But then if I add in a class, if I remove the comments, you'll see now that the class is more specific than the button type. And then if I remove this, this other comment, it will become yellow because now the ID is more specific than the button class and then than the button type of the element. So again, we have inline. Inline is more specific than this. If I come to this button and then I add in a style and then set the background color to maroon, you'll see now that the text becomes maroon. because inline styling is more specific than these other three. So to give you a quick definition, specificity is how the browser decides which rule applies if multiple rules have different selectors but apply to the same element. So we have seen the class here, and then the element type selector, then the button, and then here in the HTML we have seen at inline styling. And then I want us to look at something else called inheritance. So here I'll add in a div. I'll first wrap this text. I'll add in a div here below, a div, and then I'll give it a class of content, and then inside here I'll put some text in my coding school. Let's fix this spelling in my coding school, and then save. You'll see now that we have the text here. What I'll do is I'll come to the CSS, and then I'll get a class of content, and then I'll apply the color. I'll set it to blue. Save. Now that the color becomes blue, and then I will change the font family to monospace, and then I'll change the font size to something extra large, and then save, and then refresh. You'll see now that the text has a blue color and it has a font family of monospace, and then the font size is set to extra large, meaning that all the color and then the font related properties, the text in this div will inherit them directly. So let's look at this in the browser. So here in the browser we have this text here, and it's what I want to select here. This text here inside, you will see that this is the style that is applied, the color, then the font family, and then the font size. So it has inherited from the parent element. So for this video we are going to end here, then we are going to catch up the next with CSS properties that affect the layout of a page.